Hello and welcome back. We are going to talk about how you can form a concise overall message. So in the last video, we talked about how long-windedness was a key enemy of good communication. And now we're going to start to work on compressing your overall message. So the key tip for this video is keep your overall message tight. That's the nice sound that you want to have. Mark Twain once wrote, "I didn't have time to write a short letter, so I wrote a long letter instead." He's writing a letter to a friend. And I love that quotation because really it takes time and thought to take whatever it is you want to say and compress it into a shorter message. This is not automatic. So if you're writing things out, frequently you might revise an email to compress it. And it's the same thing. If you're talking to somebody in a meeting, in a presentation, in a one-on-one conversation, you have to give your message some thought so that your overall message is more compressed. And everybody appreciates a concise message. If you're doing a presentation, people want you to finish on time, maybe even a little early. If you're in a meeting, they want you to take a nice short talking turn in that meeting and compress that message so you can have a dialogue. If it's your turn to talk in a regular old conversation, then they certainly want a chance to talk as well. So you want to take a short talking turn there. And if you have anything like an elevator pitch where you're explaining the value of what your team adds, you want to make sure that's nice and compressed because people are watching you. And if you start going long, they're thinking to themselves, wrap it up already. They want to tell you like, look, it's time. You got to finish. You don't want to go over. You want to compress that message. And when you are compressing the message, you have to rely on strategies. This is not automatic. So strategy number one, skip to the heart of the message. Typically, we know what we want to say if we give it a little bit of thought. And so once you open your mouth, you want to skip to that bottom line. You want to really skip to the heart of the message. So skip the preamble. Don't give a whole long, chatty introduction that's not really going anywhere to warm things up a little bit. Just skip to the heart of the message. Skip all the little qualifications that you might make along the way. Like, oh, well, we're not really saying this, and I was wondering about that, but here's what we're really saying. Skip those qualifications. Just go right to the heart of the message. Skip the whole big backstory. People don't need to go all the way back to the book of Genesis to understand what you're trying to say. Give them only what they need so that you can get to the heart of the message and skip the thinking out loud. Don't take them on the whole journey that you have gone through to arrive at this thinking. A little bit of warm up is fine, but you really just want to skip. You don't want to think totally out loud all the time. Skip to that heart of that message. That's the way you do it. So think of you're looking at everybody in a meeting or in a presentation and just think to themselves when they're looking at you, they're thinking, bottom line me. They're thinking, just say what you came here to say, and that'll start moving you in the right direction. So let's look at an actual message and get some practice here, cutting to the heart of the message. I'm going to read the whole thing, and then as I read it, I want you to think, really, what is the key here? If we only had 2 or 3 sentences, what is absolutely necessary to keep in and what can go away? So what's at the heart of this message? Let's look at this. So I was driving around the other day doing, errands and whatnot. I saw a car go by that looked just like yours. At least it looked like your car to me. Do you drive a Toyota? Anyway, I saw this car and it made me think of you. You know what? It might have been a Honda, not a Toyota. Their SUVs look so similar. Long story short, it made me think of you, and that's why I called. It's been too long. We should get together again to talk about that project. I was wondering if you'd like to put something on the calendar. It might have been a Subaru. So again, what's the heart of this message? What needs to be there above everything else? And if you're asking me, I think it's all the way toward the bottom. I think it's been too long. We should get together again to talk about that project. I was wondering if you'd like to put something on the calendar. If that's all you said when you had the conversation with the person, your mission would be accomplished. The rest of it is just preamble and chatter and thinking out loud that does not need to be there. So that's the heart of the message. Strategy number 2, make your point and then zip it. In other words, get to the heart of the message, end your talking turn, literally close your mouth, and then give that person a chance to talk. You want to create a dialogue between yourself and other people in conversations, and that goes for meetings. You want to make your point and then let it become a discussion. You want people to discuss and participate at meetings. That is happening in conversations. You want to end your talking turn so they can contribute and you can have an exchange of ideas. And even in a presentation, you want to end your presentation nice and concisely so that there's time for Q&A. Some of the most valuable moments come out during the Q&A following a presentation. So make sure you skip to the heart of the message and then zip it. That's how to do it. And one of the ways to do this is that you want to look for signs from the people that they are reading you. And typically what this looks like is that people are nodding their head at what you're saying, and they're making other kinds of nonverbal cues that signal that they're following you like they've got you. Now, the reason I mention this is that a lot of times people will make the mistake of thinking that head nodding and other kinds of positive nonverbal cues means, hey, I like what you're saying, keep talking. But really what most people are trying to do is signal like, yeah, I get it. Like, you've made your point, like, move on. So watch for those little head nods and signals. That's when you know they've already got what you're saying and you can move on. So let's look at a message here, and I want to ask you, what would you cut from this message? So remember, we're working on skipping to the heart of the message and then zipping it, then closing your mouth so that you can turn it into a dialogue. So let's say somebody asks you, have you contacted the meeting planner yet? And here is the long-winded answer, and we're going to cut it. No, not yet. I still have to figure out what we need from her. I've got a call scheduled with the children's ministry leader, but I have to see if that call is actually going to happen. I was also waiting to hear back from the musicians. If our first music choice is available, then that will shape the rest of the program. There are lots of balls in the air, but we'll get there. I just didn't anticipate so many loose strings, that would still be loose at this point. So that's a very long-winded answer to a very direct question. Remember, again, the question was, have you contacted the meeting planner yet? That is a yes or no question. So if it were me, I would say that the bottom line is no, not yet. I still have to figure out what we need from her. That is the heart of the message. And then what you can do is close your mouth and allow a dialogue to happen. And now the person who asked the question can jump in and ask another question. So they might respond and say, okay, all right. And again, they're nodding. And you want to look for those clues that you can stop talking. So let's say they start saying, all right, okay, and they're nodding while you're finishing a sentence. That's when you zip it. That's a good signal to let the person, let you know as a speaker that they're following you. So watch out for those nonverbal cues. Strategy number 3, this is like the easiest one to do. You want to finish just under time. Typically for presentations and meetings and things, there's a scheduled amount of time, and you want to make sure you're on the short side of that time. So let's say you have an hour for a team meeting. Wrap it up in 55 minutes. Make sure you finish this a little bit early. Let's say you're given 30 minutes for a presentation. Finish it in 28 minutes. 28 minutes for a 30-minute presentation, everybody loves you. At 32 minutes for a 30-minute presentation, people are like, just get it over with. So you don't want to overstay your welcome, especially in presentations. So let's say you have asked for a 5-minute conversation with a person. Make sure you wrap that conversation up in 4 minutes. In fact, true story, I was trying to meet with an executive years ago, and I kept trying to meet with her and she kept blowing me off. And I said, I just need 10 minutes. I literally need 10 minutes. And finally, we scheduled a meeting. And beforehand, I said, I'm going to finish this meeting in 8 minutes just to see what happens. And I finished it in 8 minutes. I zipped it. I thanked her. And she said, wow, you weren't kidding. You really only needed 10 minutes. Being concise instantly sets you apart. And you're going to seem like you really know what you're doing. You're going to come across as a leader. So let's recap. Keep your overall message compressed and tight. Key takeaways are skip to the heart of the message. You want to be able to say it in 2 to 3 sentences. Then you want to, once you make your point, zip it, close your mouth, and then in any occasion where there's a schedule, make sure you finish just under time. In the next lesson, we're going to look at how to form concise sentences, which is an art in and of itself, and I look forward to seeing you in that lesson.